Hello everyone, I'm going to show you how to take apart a Leuchtturm 1917. I've already taken apart one. It was a dotted Leuchtturm, and as you can see the cover remains intact. The only ugliness about it is the spine, but once you close it you don't see that. And I think it's handy to keep this about because you can take your inserts that you make, and once they're all used up, you can store them under the elastic like this, and you still have use of the pocket, as you can see, and you can archive your inserts as if they never left the Leuchtturm. There is some waste in this process. You get about 7 or 8 booklets from taking this apart, if that's a clean Leuchtturm. If you've got a partially used Leuchtturm that you want to take apart so that you can use the other booklets, so that's a clean booklet. This is a even smaller booklet, I think, from the back of the Leuchtturm. And then you have the pages from the incompletely used booklet as well. You can consider that waste. I make a lot of mistakes in my bullet journal, and I use these to cover up my mistakes. So I keep these around, and so I don't throw these away. These are very useful to me, but as you can see there's quite a few pages that are thrown out, and you'll see in the process why that is. Let's talk a little bit about how the Leuchtturm is put together. So it's a thread-bound notebook, which means that they're attached to the spine with thread, and it allows it to be very flexible, allows it to lay flat, which is very nice. If you look very, very closely, you can see along, I'm going to draw it out here for you, you can see along the spine the individual booklets that are in the Leuchtturm. There's a catch to this though. There's not just booklet back to back. There's an extra layer of paper in between each booklet. So we have a booklet and a booklet and a booklet, etc. But we also have 2 sheets of paper. So we have a piece of paper that wraps around a booklet, another piece of paper that wraps around a booklet, another piece of paper that wraps around a booklet. So you've got 2 pages in between each booklet which are essentially being tossed out. In addition to that, in your standard Leuchtturm, you have the perforated pages in the back, and those also are thrown out since we're only interested in keeping the booklets. So the materials you'll need is a partially used Leuchtturm, and this was a Leuchtturm I attempted to use to keep a journal, and I got to page 12. So that didn't go very well. So I'm going to take out that failed attempt at journaling and use the rest of this Leuchtturm, or most of it. So in order to do this, you're going to need a pair of tweezers, a razor blade, and if you want to cover your Leuchtturm's booklets, then you're going to need washi tape and either scrapbook paper. I use a coloring book. Okay, so the first things first is this front page and this page are waist. Then you have these content pages. These are actually part of the first booklet. So what you do is you find the back side of the booklet. I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, this is probably easier just to cut it from the front. I'm right-handed, so I flip it to the back of the booklet and just apply very gentle downward pressure. So these, they're attached with thread, as I've mentioned. They're also glued just a bit. And we'll see what that means for us a little later. Let's finish cutting out all these booklets. Flip 2 pages. Isolate the booklet. So I just lift up on a couple of pages and the booklet kind of comes up all on its own. So I've isolated the booklet and I gently cut it out. Flip 2 pages, isolate the booklet, flip it to the back, gently cut it out. Better. So there is booklet number 2, and this one is perfectly clean. It goes from page 29 to 56. So you've got about 26 blank pages if you don't count the outside, because if you do what I do, you're going to cover that. So it's a small booklet. It's not going to get you through a whole month of one-page dailies. But I like the small size for frequent rotation in and out, because part of the reason why I don't like the bullet journal is I'm carrying several months of outdated information. So another downside to cutting these booklets out, if you haven't already figured it out, in addition to losing 2 pages in between every booklet, that means you don't have the number system of the pages. So if you rely on that, this is probably not the best thing for you to do, or if having those numbers be there in your booklets and they be essentially irrelevant and just there, that might annoy you as well. Isolate the, okay, so this one is a small booklet. This is only going from page 221 to 232, so it's about half-size booklet here. All the same, we're going to isolate it and cut it out. Alright, so now we have a booklet of perforated pages. Alright, and then the last page is glued to the back cover sheet. So now when you look at the spine, you can see the gaps where those booklets were. And these are all glued together and kind of glued and attached to like a little backer piece of paper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to cut all of this out. And the way I do that is I take a ruler. So these 2 pages are glued together, so I'm just going to pull them to the side. And I'm going to put the ruler in. So this has like a beveled edge. I'm going to put the flat side of the ruler towards the spine, or towards the back cover. And I'm just going to press that ruler into the spine, and I'm going to run the razor blade along this crease. And it's my hope that the ruler will stop the razor blade from going a little too far or taking a more meandering path. Now I'm cutting towards myself, which means be careful, don't hurt yourself, don't drop the razor blade on the floor, especially when there's a curious kitten about. This So I didn't quite get it on the first pass. So I'm just cutting along the crease. There we go. There's the back side. So it's glued just a little bit to this backing paper. And do the same thing to the front. So I'm going to press the flat side of the ruler towards the front of the notebook. Press the spine down with the ruler, if I can get a good grip on it, and run the razor blade along the crease. And the razor blade is positioned in my hand at a 45-degree angle. I'm kind of cutting down and into, maybe even underneath the ruler. I'm not doing a very good job of staying on a straight line here. I'm not pressing well enough into the ruler. And you can just lift, maybe tear these divider pages out. Clean this up. It's really not a heavy-duty glue. You can kind of pull everything out. And I even did a better job on this one because I kept this lining paper intact instead of exposing the cardboard of the spine. That does mean, however, that you're not going to be able to pull out the ribbons like I did on the green one. That is entirely up to you. They are glued to this paper. And since I don't care about this spine, I'll cut it so you can see that they're just glued right in there. So you can cut those out. I'm just gonna pull them out because it doesn't bother me one bit. That spine is a little ugly. Okie doke. We still have our pocket, we still have our labels, and we've got, not including the booklet that I cut apart, and not including the perforated booklet. And let's throw out the tiny booklet in our count. Of course, you can still use it. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 booklets from my Leuchtturm that was partially used. Now I feel like I have a clean start. Now this isn't done, of course. We still have these little threads poking out. So you want to find the middle of a booklet, and I just look at the spine and watch those pages until I see a consistent piece of paper all the way across. And then you take the two sides of the paper, sorry, there's my cat jumping on my stuff. You take the two sides of this sheet of paper and you pull on it. And I don't know if you can see, but that is exposed pieces of thread. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of thread here. And this is where the tweezers come in handy. So put the razor blade away, grab the tweezers, and just yank out the little pieces of thread. And you can do that for every single booklet. I'm not going to do that on film. It does take a little bit of a tug to pull these threads out because they're glued. Once you get to this state, you can kind of see when you pull that paper apart, there's this little bit of glue damage on the paper. Again, that might bother you, it might not, just be aware of it. Okay. So let me show you how I cover these inserts so that they don't look like they are ripped out of a Leuchtturm, and they look like this. And for that, I use washi tape and a coloring book. And so I'm going to pick a design from the coloring book that I like. I'm going to go with this one. And this is kind of a cheap coloring book, so I just take out the whole entire page if I can. Although I do want to take off that perforated edge. It's just easier to fold it and work with it when it's not in the book. That I've taken off the edge. Kishi, you want that? I'm going to fold this in half. Line up the edges. Fold it in half, and you'll see why soon. Now I'm going to take this insert and I'm going to lay it flat on my desk and line up the crease with this, the creases of the coloring page and the insert. You're not going to help me with this, are you? You're going to be a punk. So I do line it up with the outside edge. And I like to choose a busy washi tape because I find the best way to get this coloring paper on here without it getting twisted up and causing issues with the closure of, folding the insert closed, is to just take the washi tape to the spine and tear it off and only do the one side first. Now you'll probably find a better way. I'm impatient. I don't think things out as much as I should before I do them sometimes. So the reason I do that is because if I were to tape all the way across and then fold it, this would end up being bubbly. I don't have the skill to tape all the way across without it getting bubbly. Okay, Missy, off the desk. So now I can make sure it lays flat and then apply more washi tape. And with the washi tape being busy, you can't tell. And if it does bother you, then be a little more careful than me when applying the washi tape across the entire length of the paper.